Hello, wonderful listeners. Today on the English Mystic Podcast, we have a remarkable guest joining us. She's a former Nike executive turned multi-seven-figure property investor, and she's a certified money coach. She's on a mission to empower women in transforming their financial landscapes. With a wealth of experience and a commitment to authenticity, please welcome the inspiring Rachel Jane Gregory. So our guest today is Rachel, and welcome, Rachel. First of all, where are you in the world for our speakers?
I am in the village of London.
Oh, that's a big village.
Big village, multiple villages. So yeah, UK capital.
Cool. And it's a very nice sofa you've got there. I believe that you've got a furry friend as well.
I do have a furry friend. He's just a little bit asleep, I think, just next to us. Hopefully he'll
What's his
stay
name?
that way. His name is Nate.
Beautiful. Cool. So we might see him running around at some point, or
You
hear
might
it,
see him
depending
running
what
around at
goes
some
on.
point. At the moment, he's all snuggled in his bed. Very cute.
Good. We'll keep the noise down then.
He likes to be the centre of attention. He might come and make an appearance.
Yeah, I remember. So, Rachel, can you share with us your journey from that amazing Nike executive through to becoming who you are now, this multi-seven-figure property investor and certified money coach? So, how did it happen?
Well, it happened probably in an unusual way, in the sense it wasn't probably the best of circumstances, but I've learned over the years that big changes come usually out of big concerns and challenges, right? So if we step back to 2011, I actually got quite ill.
Right.
So long story short, I kind of had a cold thing that then kind of knocked me flat basically for 3 days. And I was like, oh, that's not normal. And I literally knocked me completely flat for 3 days. And I was like, oh, it's just a one-off. And then it happened again. And then again. And then again. So at a certain point, I went and saw a doctor and was like, do you know who I am? I'm so important. Like, I can't have 3 days off work every month. This is not sustainable. And they started to do tests. They were like, oh, you're vitamin D deficient. I'm like, yes, there's 99% of the UK population, especially with the rain we've had recently. And then, they carried on doing different tests. And eventually they decided to send me to a neurologist on Harley Street. And he decided to give me an MRI scan of my brain and my spine and nerve conduction studies. And I didn't realise this at the time because I was completely naive, but they were testing for MS. And I was 35. Fortunately, they came back and said, you don't have that, which was like, because like when they told me that's what they were testing for in the results, I was like, whoa, pardon, excuse me, what? But they then said I'd got chronic fatigue syndrome.
Right.
But I was doing crazy things, like I was forgetting words in the middle of sentences, and at that point in my life I didn't have a to-do list. Everything was in my head, so like to forget words in the middle of sentences was like I'm going crazy. I then would put a glass down on the side, I'd misjudge it, it would fly on the floor, I'd trip over things. Like my whole world was like, what is going on? I am losing the plot. So it was a pretty scary time, and I say the fatigue was really there. Like I was really exhausted all the time. So that's what they concluded. So that for me was a really big wake-up call of like, hang on a minute, like this world is not working for you right now. We've got to do something different. But while I acknowledged that, I was still in the reality of like living in London, which is not the cheapest place in the world to live. And I needed an income. I was then and still am single. So it was like, well, if I don't pay the bills, who is? So that led to some pretty like soul searching of like, well, what happens now? And then there'd been a restructure in 2009. So almost 3 years earlier. And that was the first one that Nike had ever been through. So at that point, it was a real shock. And that's what had brought me actually from the European office to the London office. Because it was in preparation then for the 2012 Olympics that were coming. And as I say, that was the first one it had ever been. It was just an unheard of thing in our company because it was such a successfully cash-rich company. It was, not normal. And then I heard rumours there was going to be a second one. I was like, a second one? Now, actually, they've just actually let go 1,500 people just in the last couple of weeks.
Oh, wow.
So these uncommon things became a cycle. So as I say, it happened sort of 3 years after the first one, and then from what I've seen of it subsequently, it's been almost every 3 years ongoingly. So yeah, what was a bit of a shock at the beginning became a bit of a pattern. But yeah, I heard rumours that there was going to be another one. I was like, maybe this is my opportunity. And a lot of people would have not seen it, I appreciate it as an opportunity, but for me, I was like, this is potentially an opportunity for me to exit left and have a little bit of cash to tide me through whatever that lane looks like. And so yeah, so I kind of bided my time for a couple of months. And basically, yeah, that announcement then came through. So I was offered like 3 positions to go back to Holland and go back to the European office and like double my income that I'd left on. You know, it was all very, great opportunities. But I just knew it wasn't the right opportunity for me anymore. And it was time for me to take, I remember walking out of that office on the last day was like, I value myself more than this.
Yeah.
So it was a real thing of like choosing me over the brand, which was a great brand. Like it's an incredible company to work for. And I don't regret that time I spent there. I spent a decade pretty much working for them all over the world. But it was an opportunity that I knew it was the right time for me to go do something different. Yeah. So then I had the decision of like, well, I still need to earn an income, right? I still need to pay the bills. I live in a material world like this. We still live in a world that needs finance, right? So I then looked and I was like, well, the things that I've always like loved has been property. Like from a young age, wherever I was in the world, my dad and I would go look at estate agent windows and like go, what if, right? Never any intention of buying anything, but we'd always like dream window shop. We still do it to this day. This is still a thing the family does, is window shop through estate agent windows. I think we should have a free membership permanently to Rightmove on a premium level. But it's, so that's what I was going to do. And I remember saying, like, people were like, what are you going to do? I'm like, I'm going to do something to do with property. And I think they all thought I was absolutely insane of like, how is she ever going to do that? Like, she hasn't got any money. What does that look like? But that was the beginning of the journey. But yeah, when I was working there as well, like I'd obviously made the decision I was then leaving, but I'd got a little bit of like work until I left. And my boss had said to me, if you need to go and see a recruiter or like find a new job, like just go. But what had happened actually a few days earlier than that is I'd had to go to a lawyer's on Regent Street to remove my non-compete clause from my contract. So I'd gone to them and signed the paperwork to remove that. And I got onto the tube at Oxford Circus to come home, so Victoria Line. And as I looked down, there was an Evening Standard like laying on the ground, as there typically is in the tube. And I picked it up and it opened up to like how to make money from property, like a seminar. And I was like, whoa, that's weird.
Wow.
So again, it was very much this sort of fateful thing of like, I'd made the decision to do something and then the opportunities were being presented to me. And it was happening in a hotel just around the corner from where I worked. And the reason I knew that hotel was there was because since being ill, I'd had to change the way I got to work. Mm-hmm. Because I couldn't take the usual journey because I was exhausted by the time I got to work. So I started to take a bus route and different things to get to work. So I then ended up walking past this hotel on a daily basis. So I knew exactly where this hotel was. Again, another synchronicity that, you wouldn't normally expect. So so I turned up at there and told my boss I was going to see a recruiter. Went to a 2-hour seminar. That led to another training, which led to another training. But yeah, I guess the rest is history. I then, learned how to invest in property.
Beautiful. It's amazing, isn't it, how many people have those golden handcuffs that there's so much money there, but your soul sort of says, yeah, that's great. However, you seek something different. It sounds like the universe was sort of going, she's got that thought, let's give her a hand, and the paper and walking
as you
past
say,
the
so many
hotel.
people keep in those handcuffs as well, right? I see people like biding their time and like living very unfulfilled lives because they need the cash. Yeah. Right. And they're not necessarily choosing themselves. They are as you say, golden handcuffs to stay in those positions.
Yeah, and there's many people there, and that's really that's why it's good to share your story, to say that yes, you can do. It's extremely scary, I'm sure, making that jump. However, sometimes you have to do that, don't you? It's the unknown, and
Yeah,
follow your
I
soul.
also I was a very different person then to I am now. So like, if you saw me today, you'd be like, oh yeah, well, it was easy for her. She can make those sort of decisions. She's an empowered woman. Da, da, da. But at that point, I was a broken woman. Like, as I say, let's backtrack to 2011, 2012, right? My health was in a really chronic, really bad place. It was a chronic condition. And my mindset at that point then had also gone down the toilet. So I was in a very kind of, I hate to use dark place, but I kind of was. Like, if anybody said anything slightly positive to me, I would give a negative answer to it, never a negative response, right? I couldn't see the light and the positive in anything. So, but it got to a point where I was like, I've got to make a change. And if I don't make the change, nothing's going to change. Like, I still had some inner strength and fire in my belly of knowing that much, that I was 100% responsible for my life, and therefore if it wasn't working right now, I needed to do something about it. And so I took that responsibility of like, well, this is my opportunity, and you've got to try, right? At this point you've got to try something else, because what you're doing now isn't working.
Yeah, makes sense. Cool. So you've gone on this beautiful journey, and you've found how to do property investment. So at what point did you think, maybe I could help others do this? There must have been a time where you thought, actually, I've got it. How did you come to that, and why? Why do you want to do that?
So it started because the company that I learned from actually approached me and said, like, you're doing well. Do you want to come back and like help us?
Yeah.
And that was something that actually I'd been really empowered about, even on my own training. I'd seen other people doing that and was like, oh my God, that's what I'd like to do. So like, even again, backtracking to when I was like 5 years old, I wanted to be a primary school teacher. Like, I never followed that route, but there was always something inside of me of wanting to give back, contribute. Like, contribution, is one of my values. I'm a trustee of a local charity. So like, for me, that opportunity to pay it forward was massive for me. So, it's something, that not everybody has access to, right? It certainly wasn't something that I got brought up with, right? I didn't know how to invest. None of my family have invested. It's just not a skill that was taught at school. It's not something I learnt from parents. So, for many people, it's not accessible. And I think beyond that, it's seen as not accessible. Like, it's not for me, right? Especially as a woman. It's like, investing, that's a men's game, right? Surely it's not, it's not possible for me. Yeah. So to enable to, empower and inspire through what I've done, to show people that actually, if I could do it in the situation where I was, where I had no job, no income, a little bit of money, but that was literally, paying for me to live. I didn't use any of that to invest. Mm-hmm. And chronic health condition, no partner, no other support. If I can do it, then freaking anybody can do it.
Yeah. And that's the inspiring thing about it, is that people need to realize that, you can be like down in the dumps and still, with that inner fire, keep that inner fire going and follow the passion almost.
Yeah, it became kind of I just knew I couldn't go back to corporate.
Yeah. And
it was almost that, people talk about burning bridges. I'm sure you've heard that analogy many times. I didn't necessarily see it like that, but I just knew, for me, that wasn't an option for me. I knew my body couldn't sustain that any longer. And so I needed to find a new path. So it became like a mission of like, this, it's got to work, I guess, right? And that inner desire of like, this is what I want to create, and this is the life that I choose to, to live.
Yeah. It's that point you're all in on you. It's that burning the bridges, burning the boats, and because you're 100% committed to it, you don't. When you find problems, you find a way around them rather than just go, I'm giving up, because there's no backup.
Yeah. No, it is kind of like, it's life. I've just been reading some of my Gene Keys, but like, my life is about trial and error, right? But I've definitely had a lot of things like rocks, obstacles, whatever you want to call them, like come up in my life. But it's very cliche to say, but it is about that journey, right? It's, while I'm very proud of what I've created with my property portfolio, what I'm most proud about is actually who I've become in the last 12 years.
Yeah.
Like, I can't believe it's almost 12 years since I, left that last day. But like, that's the thing that I'm most proud of who I've been able to become by being and navigating those challenges and, traversing the different things without throwing the towel in.
Yeah, you learn to trust yourself, don't you? So fully, that it doesn't matter what comes up. For a moment, it might shock you, but you get to the point. Well, I've survived this so far.
Yeah.
Let's come on.
It actually, I think that's something that I see sometimes of people of kind of our age range. Let's say self-trust becomes something that actually people lose.
Yeah.
Like when they're younger, they maybe are with that vigor and that like ambition and anything's possible kind of scenario. But I think, some people do get jaded by life, right? And, we're very much living in interesting times right now, right? And I understand, like, I have compassion for those people, right? You can easily be swept up in all of that.
Yeah.
And lose yourself inside of, like, you still, I always say every day's a school day, right? They're like, it's not over until the fat lady sings, right? It's never too late.
That's true. I mean, I was reading something the other day where they were saying that how many people in their 60s to their 80s have created successful businesses and companies, and we all seem to think,
was it Colonel Kentucky Fried Chicken guy?
Yeah, exactly.
I can't remember his name now, but Colonel, Colonel somebody. Was he like I think he was in his 60s or something, right? When he created KFC.
Yeah, and there's a list of so many because people do get that you I did it myself. You fall into the I must get a 9 to 5 job and I must work for 40 years, and then you start getting to the end of that 40 years and you start thinking, well, I don't want to just retire. I want to do something different, and you find that you've made it in your career, but your soul's just not being fed all the way through.
Yeah. And I think, to be honest, when I look back on me, that's potentially why I got ill. Like, when you look at the connection between mind, body, spirit, I was always somebody that, like, freedom's my number one value, growth's my number two, love, connection, contribution, all those are kind of mixed up. And I wasn't growing. Like, my work was really important to me in the world, and I wasn't getting that opportunity to grow. And I didn't look for growth outside of work. I kind of was looking for it in one place. And now I look for growth in everything. But at that point, I was really focused on my growth was going to come from my career, and it wasn't coming from there. And the more it didn't happen, it almost became a self-fulfilling prophecy of feeling worse about myself. So no wonder I wasn't going to get the growth. But inside of that, lack of, direction, I guess, or, feeling like I was having a purpose in the world. That's obviously a big one for a lot of people. Again, that existential crisis of, like, what am I here for? Like, I remember, remember stories. Like, I remember looking in my bathroom mirror every morning going, there's got to be more to life than this.
Yeah.
Like, they were the questions that I was asking myself on a daily basis. And it's like, how many times are you going to ask that before you do something about it? You find out, well, what is there more to life than this? But those are going to big questions that some people are not comfortable enough to go in and ask.
True.
Because they maybe don't want the answer.
Yeah. Sometimes it's sort of safer being held and looked after, and you know where you're going, what the next step is, and it's probably not for everyone to go out and have freedom. Some people don't need it. Some people need safety. So yeah, it's not for everyone.
But I've realised that actually security is also very important to me. I'm freedom and security.
Yeah.
Like, for me, it's both.
Paradox.
It's almost like my security gives me freedom as well, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. It's definitely the tangibility of both. Right.
That's good. So you, on the journey, you became a certified money coach. What's a certified money coach? And then how does that help the people, these thousands of people that you're looking to sort of assist?
So I'll just give you a backstory of where that actually came up. So I started, as I say, helping people invest in property.
Yeah.
And I started work helping at events, and then I started online coaching. And I was talking to people all over the world, which are Australia, New Zealand in the morning, and then Europe and the UK in the evening, which was amazing. I absolutely adored it. But I started to see that whoever I was speaking to, there were similar things coming up, right? We all have our similar, humans are humans, and we all had our similar like things that were maybe limiting us or, blocking our way. I don't know the word blocking, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And one of the things was around money.
Mhm.
And it occurred to me that whether somebody had money or had not got money, they still had a relationship with money issue.
Mm.
So somebody might have a lot, were concerned about investing it because they didn't want to let it go, or they had shame around having it, or guilt around having money. Some that didn't have it then were living in scarcity and lack, and well, it's never going to come, and I almost like trying to grab hold of more.
Yeah.
So I've always been practically quite good with money. Again, going back to my childhood, I would look after my brothers and my savings accounts, which was like the £5 we got for Christmas and birthday from our grandparents, right? It wasn't big quantities, but I looked after that and saved it to the point where we were able to buy a car in our teens or late teens, right? So, again, we managed what we had, if that made sense.
Yeah.
But I didn't really understand at that point the inner workings of money, that inner relationship with money. But I saw that was what was reflecting on the external. So that's when, again, I was like, okay, well, then this is something that I want to, grow in and understand. So I, found a company in the US actually that trained me to be a certified money coach. So it's more that the process of that is more around your inner relationship with money. So it's diving into, patterning from parents, looking at your money stories from your childhood. The subconscious, obviously, we know is being hardwired by the age of 7 or 8.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a lot of those things. And, for me, it always mind blows me of like, I had a Venezuelan client once where the way he drank his red wine was the same way as he used his money. And when he changed the way he drank his red wine, he also changed the way that he drank his red wine, right? It always blows my mind, those behaviours can cross food, drink, money.
That's amazing, isn't it?
Lots of
I
different
suppose it's
things.
all those like my dad always used to say, "Oh, money doesn't grow on trees," and that gets stuck, doesn't it? And
Yeah,
and you have these like glass ceilings, as we call them, that
yeah.
limit you on where you think your income should be and how much you should charge people.
Well, you see
Yeah,
these beliefs and then you realise they're not even your beliefs, right?
yeah,
And they're like, some of the times it's not even what you hear, it's what you observe. So again,
mm-hmm.
as a young child, you're very much a sponge of your experience, right?
Yeah,
So again, I had a client who never saw their mum eat dinner with them.
yeah.
So his assumption was there wasn't enough food for his mum to eat, right? She'd given it to the children and there was none for her. It happened when we went into the story and went and actually asked her because she was still living. We went and asked her. She just chose to have dinner later on her own. But his whole story had been there wasn't enough for his mum to eat.
Mm,
So again, it's not, we know we're meaning making machines, right? So sometimes it's not only what you're hearing or, it's also what you're seeing and then the meaning you're putting behind all of that. So
cool.
that's what was really fueling me of bringing that also into property, because I see how those money patterns still show up, even though you know how to invest. If you still got those money stories of, like, my classic one is when people, you're building a property portfolio for as much as possible passive income, but you have a belief that, you have to work hard to make money,
Mm-hmm.
and the portfolio doesn't really perform, it becomes hard work.
Yeah,
So it's fascinating.
it's powerful, isn't it? What the mind thinks and what the mind believes becomes true for you, because
Yeah.
you almost sort of sabotage, self-limit and everything, don't you?
Yeah, and kind of your body also holds trauma and stuff, right? As well, your body, there's a book, isn't it? The Body Keeps a Score. That
Yeah.
it also has some memories, cellular memory.
Mm.
So it's looking at it from all perspectives. So yeah, so when I do my money coaching now, we bring it into my property investing. So it is looking at the inner work and the outer work. It's the inner work definitely is a reflection of what shows up in the external. But yeah, what I love about that is because a lot of people look at the emotional side or the spiritual side, or they'll look at the very practical finance stuff. I love the weave of the both.
Yeah.
For me, I feel my kind of soul mission is about, looking at the, combination of the spiritual and the material world and seeing the two together. Because in many respects, I feel some people, shun the material world for the spiritual world. You see that in healing communities and stuff like that, of like, I can't charge for my skills, like, it's a gift, and like almost like shun the material world.
Yeah.
And then there's some people that live in very much in a material world and shun the spiritual world. And for me, it's not a one or other, it is an and.
Yeah.
And that's my biggest word, is and.
Yeah. And is the bridge between the two, isn't it? So yeah, that makes sense.
We can have both, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's the balance, isn't it? You want both, and you have to be in one camp or the other, but ensuring you are in both, not
And
like
it's
you say, just in
the flow
one.
between the two. Like, people talk about balance. I personally don't think there is such a thing. I really have this harmony now of the flow. There's things that I do more of in the practical, the masculine energy, and there's things that are more in the feminine and the spiritual energy. And it's
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you're completely in the middle, you're neither one nor the other.
it's definitely a dance.
Yeah. That's a good way of describing it, isn't it? So you say your mission on your website says the mission is to help 1,000 women create a 7-figure net worth by 2031, which is only 7 years away. So are you on plan, and how are you going to achieve this amazing goal?
Quantum leaps. So for me, obviously, that my vehicle to wealth and to generational impact and change is through property investment. That is obviously, again, I am very much the embodiment of what I teach, right? I teach what I know, and the know is the knowing, not just the knowledge, right? It's the actual lived experience of it. So again, that's something that I've really learned, is my gifts is also sharing my my trials and errors and my lived experience of doing it. So for me, it's very much about teaching. Again, I teach both genders, but for me, it's like a lot of women don't think that this is for them. Like, I personally actually see the money as kind of a bit more masculine, but actually investing, I think, is actually more feminine energy, interestingly. That that excess, that overflow is kind of tends to feel more in that, as I say, that flow energy. So yeah, but it's there's studies out there that say that women are better investors, but it's still an area where a lot of people think it's not for them. So for me, that's kind of my mission, is to bring that education, that inspiration, that empowerment to women, that it's possible for them too. And I also want to find a way, I haven't worked this out completely yet, I'm working with my accountant how this would look, but finding a way where it can be like almost like a circular economy as well. So there can be micro loans, maybe going to female entrepreneurs or other, even startups or other businesses. So it becomes like a more than just for you, for us learning. It can be a wider impact on society too.
Beautiful. I love it. Sounds good. And then one of the things you say about empowering individuals, is there something you could sort of share with us that's in your the way you work? Are there sort of a couple of key nuggets you could share to say?
Well, as I say, I do weave the money work in with my investment. I also weave like mastery of self as well. So it's almost like mastery of self, mastery of money, and then mastery of investment. Because as I say, I think there are other people out there that teach the property stuff, but nobody's really looking at the money and the person doing it. And for me, I think the thing I've learned so much is you can take any strategy, but not everybody will be successful with that strategy. So for me, it's who's the being doing the doing.
Right. But yeah.
Whereas a lot of people, like, their constant question is like, how do I do this? Whereas for me, it's like, well, it's always looking why you want to do this. Like, what is your reason for doing this? Like, so you're very, very clear on where you are now and where you want to go. Because again, if not, you can just get stuck in a vicious circle of doing.
Yeah.
Like, I see that personally, I see that a lot of investors, they don't know when to stop. They don't know when enough is enough. They're caught in this perpetual cycle. And then, as I say, it's looking at you, and like oftentimes the thing that's holding you back is not that the strategy is not working. It's something more with you that's having you, not go all in, as we've talked about earlier, or you don't want to let the money go. you know, because again, money is there to flow right in and out like a tide. So that for me is the big one, is the being. The other one that I would say is probably where I put more focus on is looking at the people, because a lot of people see property as property,
Yeah.
and so I think it's a property business, it's a building business, and also it's a process, like steps by steps. I can give you all the step by steps, but for me, it's also about the people, whether that's relationships with the estate agents, the letting agents, your builder, your tradespeople, your tenants. We're all humans in this, and kind of like, you know, I literally have just put the phone down recently from my insurance broker because he's retiring on Wednesday. And I'm like, he's taken me through the whole thing from like my first property all the way through. I'm like, we were just having this conversation. You've seen my whole journey, right? From me going, I've just bought my first one, to the whole thing, right? And that relationship is sacred.
Yeah.
Right? It's so important. Like, I look at one of my estate agents that I had right at the beginning again, like, we're still friends now. You know, he's not in the estate agency anymore. You know, he lives in a different part of the world, but we're still friends because that relationship was built.
Yeah, that's true. We're in society now. I'm seeing there's a huge gap between people because we're all hiding. I mean, here we are on Zoom, but there's so many people hiding behind Zoom, and it's not until you get in person that the true connection occurs, is it?
Yes, although I also have, through obviously the pandemic, I guess, a lot of connections that are worldwide that I have not met. But actually those connections I feel are still as pure. And like some of the people that I felt that with and then did meet in real life, it was like we'd known each other for years, right? Because we had that connection.
Yeah.
So it depends if it, you know, some people have surface level, superficial, and some people can get deeper even on a screen, right?
True.
So,
It's true.
and then I think the other part of mastery is, again, you know, we are here to also like prosper. So for me, it's moving the focus away from the making money to the keeping of money.
Yeah.
Because I see a lot of talk in the world of like make 6 figures, 7 figures, all of that. But it's not actually like, again, I've seen through many years of like, whether you're in careers or different things, you can make money, but not everybody can keep it and then invest it. Like for me, wealth doesn't come from storing money. Wealth comes from what you invest it in.
Yeah.
And that's then what's possible to pass down generations. And like that generational impact can come from passing assets down, but it also comes with taking the education down. Again, that sharing of knowledge through the generations.
Now, you said earlier that in schools they don't teach you these things. It's quite scary, isn't it? Really, because I was watching something the other day. It was Tony Robbins. He said, probably all of you out there have bought one of these, and he shows a phone. He said, I'm just going to talk about Apple because I've got an Apple. And he said, do you know that if you went all the way through each of those versions of the phone that you had to buy and didn't buy, but put the money instead into stocks, shares, invested in Apple, he said, guess how much money you would have made today? £216 million if you'd put the money into the stock rather than buying the physical good. And it just blows your mind that, hold on a second, so many of us aren't educated in that way. So yeah, certainly
I suppose that's actually my other thing though, as well, is that the education piece for sure. But I think the other thing I see a lot of is the talk of kind of sacrifice now for later gratification, like that delayed gratification bit. And I'm very much about, you know, live your legacy now and leave your legacy later. So it's the and again. It's like, you know, we're living it now. We're like, you know, a lot of people are focused on what they can leave their children behind as a legacy piece. But actually, again, talking about what we were just saying about how we learn so much from those around us, we live that legacy. You know, if you think of your grandparents, I'm fairly sure the things you remember about them is not maybe anything you were left materially. Like for me, I've been left £1,000. That's all I've been left for my grandparents. But what I remember about them was the way they lived.
Yeah.
You know, the things that they taught me, you know, the experiences we shared together. They're the things that you remember. So
True.
for me, that's the legacy that they left.
Yeah.
So, but that's where I feel like, so maybe you're not living now, like, it's the purpose of life is to live well,
True.
right? So it's thriving now and then also taking care. So if you live, above your means now, you're not going to live well later. But if you're also focusing purely on the future and not living here, then in the nicest possible way, what's the point?
True. Yeah. And again, you say it's that balance. It's that and it's the both ends of the spectrum. Yeah. I love it. Is there a particular inspiring story you could share? Yeah, of someone you've helped and on their financial journey.
One of my ones recently was like just restructuring somebody's finance,
Yeah.
because I realized that everybody was getting paid except for them.
Right.
And again, it was almost like, well, am I allowed to take some for me? It's like, people are like, I run a business. And I'm like, the purpose of a business is also to provide you an income. But it's almost like they didn't feel that that was what it was for. It's like the business is a different entity. It's not for me.
Yeah.
And so sometimes it's like working with that with people of like, they're allowed to take some money from their business, right? So, we were looking at it and like, say everybody in their business was making money from their business, but they weren't. And, for me as a business owner, you've got kind of two elements. You've got a salary per se that would be what somebody who you would employ to do what you do would be earning.
Yeah.
And then for me, the profit element is kind of like your reward for the risk, perceived risk of creating that entity to, support other people through employment or, bring teachings and learnings to other people. So I think that was a big one for me was, working with them to, we cut one of their finance figures by 30k a year.
Oh wow.
So that's what, another 2,500 a month they were making through just restructuring the way things were set up.
Wow.
So that's a practical piece, but it was also the inner work of like, able to receive, right?
Yeah. You're not a charity. You can earn some money. Yeah. I remember one of my coaches saying to me, "Pay yourself first, not last." It's just a simple. You think, oh yeah. Hold on a second.
I can do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Cool. So the future. What does the future hold for you, Rachel? Then, both in property investing, coaching, and in life, even.
I'm having fun with my baby boy. He's looking very cute. He's opened his eyes.
Oh, might get some barking.
So yeah, going on adventures with him in the forests, in the woods, in the countryside. That's very important for me. Traveling.
Ooh, where are you
Like to do
traveling to?
like to do a bit more travel. At the moment, probably with the dog, it will be UK based. We're going to Scotland in May, so that'll be
Nice.
nice. And then on the bigger field, kind of my main focus at the moment is actually on like my consolidating my portfolios where it is and just having it again perform to the best it can. It doesn't always have to be in growth mode. It can be in consolidation and profit mode too, and have that work well. And then my big focus is on my coaching business at the moment, because that's, as I say, that's the bit that really fuels me as well. Is like my property business is at a point where it can support me fully.
Yeah.
So that gives me the time and the energy to then put into helping others. So that's where the focus is right now.
That's beautiful. And so, if somebody says, "Oh, Rachel is my woman. I need her," how do they get hold of you?
I say you don't need anybody, but I'm definitely there to guide and support you. I'm going to empower you to be not needing people. That again, for sometimes in coaching relationships, I see this codependency. Like my work is very much about, empowering you with the processes so you don't need to be dependent on me, right? You can create your own decisive decision making based on what's right for you. Because again, what might be right for me might not be right for you. So you're very clear on what your investment criteria is as well.
Beautiful.
So yeah, for people want to reach out to me, like social media is probably the best place to find me. So Rachel Jane Gregory, or I am Rachel Jane Gregory on Instagram, is probably the best place to DM me, send me a message. I'd love to have a chat with you if I can support you.
Beautiful. And is there anything else you'd like to share with the audience?
What would I just do? Yeah, just really enjoy life. I say life is for living well, and if you're in the place where I was in 2011, 2012, I think just know that there is a different reality, but you have to choose it. So be uncomfortable with the conversations and the questions that you may, need to ask yourself and navigate. And, you don't have to do this alone either, right? I didn't do it alone. I had support around me. And that's why it's really important to me that, I can inspire others to, change their life too. And
Beautiful. Love the sentiment. And I'm sure there'll be people knocking on your door looking for assistance.
I'd love to help you.
Thank you very much, Rachel.
Thank you, Kevin.